A lot of you hit me up and you say, look, Simon, I love this rent to rent thing. I want to do it. I need to make a change. I want to get out of my job, but I've got no money. All right. So many of you hit me up on that. So this video is exactly what I would do if I was you. I'm Simon, Rent to Rent 2.0 specialist and mentor. And over the past 5 years, I've built a rent to rent empire that does 7 figures of revenue every single year. And then I reinvest the money into assets that I own, all right? That's Rent to Rent 2.0 personified. And in this video, I want to share with you how I managed to raise the capital for my business in the early days and what I would be doing if I was you. So first things first, not financial advice, disclaimer. I'm just going to give you as much value as possible, because another thing I hear is that, a lot of you spend heaps of money on courses and don't get the support that you need and don't get the results. So that's why I started this channel, just to give as much free value as possible. And you'll notice I don't leave gaps. There's over 200 videos here. Plus I've got over 100 odd podcasts. If you've not seen that, check that out on my website, simonsmithonline.com, just to help you as much as I can. So if that sounds good, if you like what I'm saying, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button down there, hit the notification bell, because I found out recently that only 50% of my viewers are subscribed. What are you doing? Hit the button. Because I was saying to my team, the more people that subscribe and the more traction we get, the more that we're going to invest in terms of time, money, and just leveling up in the channel. So do me a favor, if you're enjoying it, please do let me know. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, when I started, I didn't have much money, because what happened was I got a BRR. I sold my BMW. I went to WeBuyAnyCar.com. I lost 20 grand like that. My parents helped me out with a little bit of money. And at the time I didn't know rent to rent. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I purchased a property for around 80 odd grand, I think. And we refurbed it, refinanced it, pulled some money out, and that was all good. But then what happened was I started earning £600-700 a month. I was like, this is good. But then I ran out of money. I was like, this is not good. And I had about 3 grand left. And that's when I actually started rent to rent. So my first deal needed 6 grand and I didn't have the money to finish it. Okay, I didn't have the money. But my whole thing was start now, get perfect later. My whole thing was get things moving and I'll figure it out. So the first tip, if you're sat there with no money, trying to do this, waiting for when you've got money, sometimes you're just not going to get started. So what you really need to do is try and get educated and get moving, because you can figure out the rest as you go. But anyway, I got this deal. I didn't have enough money for this deal. And I never forget, at the time, I didn't really have no credit card. I didn't own a house. I didn't have no finance really, maybe a phone contract. So the only credit card I could get was a £500 limit credit card. So I got that. And then I ended up actually having to take a loan of £3,000 to complete that first refurb. So what happened was I spent 6 grand on it, but I kind of, I was a bit smart. So it was a 3-bedroom house, 2 reception rooms. I did £500 per room, but I charged first and last month's rent. So what that meant was I got £500 times 2 per room up front, which was 4 grand technically. But I got lucky. Okay, because this is what happens when you actually make things happen. You might just get lucky. And what happened for me was one of the tenants actually paid a year up front, which was 6 grand. So I ended up with 6 grand plus 3 grand from the other 3 tenants, £1,000 each, which was 9 grand. All right. Now, before, keep in mind, I was on rock bottom. I only had a few grand, but just through thinking out the box, just through making stuff happen, just through the law of attraction, just through not sitting there waiting for the money to drop in my lap, I generated 9 grand. So what I did was I paid off the credit card, boom, £500. I paid off the loan, 3 grand, boom, cool. And then I had, quick math, what did I have? I had 9 grand minus 3.5. I had 5.5 grand then. And that was the beginning of my rent to rent journey. But the thing is, and if you've got a few deals, you'll know this, it takes a while for that money to build up. So what happened was I had 5.5 grand. I was making £800 a month, but then other deals were coming to me, and I was able to do one more deal from that particular, what should we say, pot. And then I ran out of money again, because that's what's going to happen. I don't know if you've ever looked into businesses and how they seek finance, but even the biggest giants, they have rounds and rounds and rounds of funding. That's just the way it works. Recently watching this Uber program and the story of Uber, and they're taking millions and millions, hundreds of millions of investments, and they're diluting their share, but that's allowing them to scale, because guess what? 50% of a billion is better than 100% of nothing. Anyway, I digress. So, do me a favor. I feel like I'm ranting a bit. I'm going, I'm telling you stories. But if you appreciate these type of stories, just do me a favor, comment below and just put story. If you like it when I hit you with real life stories from what I'm doing, just comment story below, right? So anyway, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm feeling good now. I'm like, yeah, I got 5.5 grand, but I've done another deal. Now I'm making maybe £1,500 a month, but I've ran out of money again. And that's when I was like, it's time to level up. So I actually took a 20 grand loan this time. And I took that money and I did 5 or 6 rent-to-rent deals rapid. So all of a sudden I went from earning £1,500 a month, say, to 5 grand a month, 6 grand a month. And then what happened was I let that build up over a couple of months, and then I got to the point where I doubled the pot. Okay, after a few months now and a bit of, hacks, big SA lumps of cash, people paying in advance, I ended up with 40 grand. And I paid the 20 grand loan off. I had 20 grand left. And since then, I've been clear sailing. So that's a little bit of an insight into how I've done it. But even later down the line, when it's been time to grow the BRR portfolio, yeah, we've had loans. But there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. Okay? And bad debt is going to be debt that you take out to buy holidays and stupid stuff, and then it takes money out of your account all the time. Good debt is leverage. So what it does is it allows you to extend your purchasing power to create passive income, to create additional income. That's an asset. So whenever you're using debt to buy an asset, such as a mortgage even, as long as it puts money in your account, that's not a bad thing. Now, if I was starting right now, the first thing I would do is get started. So don't wait to have the money before getting started, because you'll never get started, okay? The second thing I would do is I wouldn't, disclaimer, not legal advice, but don't be afraid to ask on people around you. The loans that I took were actually from friends. They weren't from the bank. So don't be afraid to ask around and say, look, this is what I'm doing. I can offer you this return, per month. It wasn't a free loan. I was giving them a return every month. I need it for 6 months or a year. Make sure you're looked after when you're confident. So second thing is, don't be afraid to ask friends and family and try and, move things forward, especially once you've got proof of concept, which I did. I was 100% sure that 20 I could double. And last but not least, and look, this is not financial advice, this is just what I've done and what I've found, and as I continue to find, is sometimes if you know what you're doing, if you've got proof of concept, if you're educated, and if it's positive leverage, good debt is actually a really, really great tool. So there has been times when I've used credit cards, I still do now, when I'm looking to scale or leverage or need short-term cash flow, but always when I know I've got my exit. I never ever do that unless I've got a clear exit. So once again, that's another top tip in terms of funding. So there are 3 things that I've done. There's a couple of other options that you do have. One option is to do a joint venture. So that means you would put the time in, somebody would put the money in, and then you would split, okay? This can be a great way of doing it, but the dangers are you need to find somebody with synergy, you need to find somebody with the right fit, you need to find somebody that has the right same goal as you need to find somebody you trust, okay? And you also need to be comfortable with the fact that at the beginning you're going to be grateful for the money, but 3 years on, when you're doing all the work and they're still getting the income, you've got to be comfortable with that. because at times that can get a little bit unbalanced. And I've had situations where you do have to have honest conversations with investors and JV partners and people that you're doing that with. But that is an option. That definitely is an option. And then lastly, you know, there is potentially joint ventures with landlords in rent to rent. So instead of you going to the landlord, hey, I'll guarantee your rent, what you can say is, I tell you what, Mr. Landlord, I've got great links and connections. I've got an amazing platform to do service accommodation. Why don't we go 50-50? We'll pay your rent out of the first income. We'll pay the bills out of the first income. And then everything above that, we will split 50-50. So say, for example, you generate $4,000, the mortgage is $1,000, the bills are $1,000. You'd pay those $2,000 off, and then you'd split £2,000 50-50, where you put in no money in. And sometimes I've had it myself where I've even got the landlord to invest in getting the property where it needs to be and furnish the property ready for me to do that. And you're gonna find that in order for that to work, top tip, in order for that to work, their potential income needs to be much larger than it would be if they just rented it in a normal way. So once again, let's say, for example, they could rent the property out for £1,500 and their mortgage is £1,000, they would make £500 profit, right? Let's just say, because they don't have to pay the bills because of family. So in the example I gave you, they had the potential to earn £1,000 a month profit, which is double. So that's how you're going to make those deals work. So I hope you found this useful. If you don't have money and you want to get into rent to rent, do me a favor, comment below, let me know. If there's anything I can do, I will help you. I really appreciate your, your time. You could be spending it with anyone, but you're spending it with me, and I hope you're gaining value. I'll speak to you in the next video.